Seeing Final Fantasy come home to Nintendo.
Yes.
I've always felt slightly at odds that it's on PlayStation. It's been 30 years, well, just shy.
Yeah.
Was it 97 Final Fantasy 7 came out?
Something like that. Between 90...
Early days of the PS1.
Yeah.
So it's always felt a little bit at odds that it's on PlayStation. And it's been a really long time that it's been timed exclusive on PlayStation. But it does feel like a Nintendo game the whole time.
Yeah.
Everything about it feels Nintendo.
Well, all the old Final Fantasies used to be on Nintendo systems, didn't they?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, obviously we can talk about Switch 2 when we get to the hardware pieces a bit, even though that's going to be like next year. But it looks like it's absolutely going to be able to run these kind of things.
Yeah.
Because it seems like they're still targeting 720p and 900p. They're not going for 4K or anything like that. So all that means is if we do get DLSS, because we've got an NVIDIA chip,
which it will have,
we will totally be able to upscale from like 480p to 720p or 900p, all these modern, really demanding games. It should keep itself going for at least 4 or 5 years, if not another 8.
I think it will be. So what that means for part 3 of the Final Fantasy VII Remake is the interesting part of that as well.
Yes, yeah.
And of course, future Square games.
Do you think they're going to day one release it across all platforms? Or just PlayStation and PC?
I find it hard to second guess that. The time frame is the important part there. Because when does that release? I still think we're like 3 years away from it happening.
Probably, yeah. You think it's going to be a PS6 title? Oh, Switch free.
Well, there is an argument to say it could be a Nintendo exclusive.
Well,
it's got a bigger player base.
I can't see it being Switch.
It just depends on when it lands and what Nintendo hardware exists at that time.
It'll be Switch 2 at that point.
Probably will be, yeah.
Yeah, because Switch 2 is going to come next year, so in 3 years' time.
And the one thing that Square have done since Final Fantasy VII, since they've had the hardware abilities of the PlayStation, is they are known for their technical marvels, making things like the cutscenes and stuff as beautiful as possible.
Yeah. They always have.
Those early PlayStation Final Fantasies were all about the cutscenes and how how amazing does this look?
CGI was insane.
It was so ahead of its time.
Oh yeah. They were like movies.
It really were, yeah. So I think they move away from PlayStation exclusivity, but I mean, PlayStation and PC at launch is very likely.
Yeah, I feel like that.
I can imagine seeing the Steam logo on there.
Yeah, maybe even on Switch at the same time.
There is kind of an elephant in the room, a question mark that could throw all of this into disarray.
Microsoft buying them.
And it's a hardware thing, so we're talking about it a bit too early. But does Steam have a console by then?
Ooh, in 3 years' time? Probably, yeah. At least Steam Deck 2 will be out in that time. 100%.
What if it's just Steam? Not the Steam console exclusive.
Off your cup.
But it's not on the consoles at the start. It's just PC only. Because the Steam console exists.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think they'll do that because there's 200 million console players.
That's true.
Out there. They wouldn't.
They just go non-platform exclusive and go everywhere.
That's what I think. That's what I think they'll do. They'll just release it on everything at once and on Xbox at the same time. Just all of it. Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Why limit yourselves now? If you've made a game as big as Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and it's flopped as hard as Rebirth flopped because of PlayStation.
Yep.
Let's be frank here. It is because it was only on PlayStation.
Yep.
If it's on everything, then you've just opened your doors to let anyone buy it.
I guess the question with Final Fantasy VII, I don't want to dwell on this game too much.
You do, really.
I do. I could do whole episodes about it. Is it flopped on PlayStation? Yes. But on what system would it have done better?
PC.
Do you think it would have sold more on PC?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I reckon so. Because it really didn't sell on PlayStation.
It didn't, no. It was very it was the best-selling game of February, and it released on the last day of February.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean a great deal.
No, it doesn't, no. Now, I don't know. I feel like it should just release across platform.
Yeah.
And totally be available on Switch too. It would just be
totally,
upscaled, that's fine. And again, I think they would make way more money that way.
Yeah. It didn't win it didn't win the major awards at the Game of the Year
Yes.
awards. I was surprised. I'm happy that Astrobot did win.
Yes.
But I kind of assumed Final Fantasy VII Rebirth might have got it.
Yeah.
Do you know what's nice about it not winning though? Is you said it in the last week's episode of the podcast. Is that a DLC and a remake didn't win Game of the Year?
Yes.
And actually, I can't ignore that.
Yeah. I don't want
It's
to.
a new thing, new game.
New game.
It is the Game of the
Give
Year.
it its own category if you
Yeah.
want best DLC this year
Yeah.
or whatever, but it can't be in Game of the Year. Doesn't
No.
make sense. to
And
me.
it's too flawed. I had a beautiful time, but for me, the whole thing is always a big nostalgia trip. I could live in that universe forever. And even with that kind of deep love for that franchise, when I finished it, I didn't want to play it again.
Yeah.
And that tells me everything about that game.
Yeah, yeah.
I had a good time, but I had too much time.
Yeah. It's too
And
big.
I think of it like Christmas cake.
Yeah.
This is Christmas.
Yeah.
If you have a little bit, it's
really
like
nice.
it's really nice. And,
Yeah.
and your brain goes, you could have more of that,
Yes.
but you don't.
Yeah.
But if you have half a Christmas cake,
Yes.
by the end of it, you're like, I don't want
You're
to
done.
look at one ever again.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It's that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Too much of a good thing,
Yes.
maybe.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I will play it when it comes to PC, but when, I don't know. And it's just, I get that weird open world dread with games that big.
100%.
That big, I go,
It's
oh, I
huge.
don't know if I want to start it because I don't think I'm going to finish it. you
Yeah.
know? So we'll see. We'll see. But I definitely want to play it because I played through Remake ready for this.
You're going to have to play Crisis Core before you do. You don't have
Yes.
to. It's not the law.
Well, I'm like halfway through.
That's a really easy game to complete. But
Yeah.
you should do. So then you've got the Zack story nailed. I did a real nerdy thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I did. Before Rebirth
Oh, yeah,
came
you
out,
played them all.
I played
yeah.
them all in order as
Yeah,
well.
too right.
Rebirth, Final Fantasy VII, and then
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's cool. But actually, if I was to say logically, the story makes a bit like Star Wars is told
Yeah,
in
yeah.
non-chronology.
Yeah.
It actually makes more sense to play Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1, then Crisis Core, then
and
Remake.
yeah,
actually makes more
Rebirth,
sense
yeah.
because you appreciate where you are in the universe more.
Oh, wow, you've made it to the end of this clip.
Oh.
But we think you would really enjoy the full podcast, which can be found over on 128KB.